right, now we've powered up the ignition and turned the battery switch on, so we've had the system wake up for the first time. You'll notice the top two green lights will be alternately flashing on top of the keypad, whether you have Pro Control Auto or Assist. On the keypad, you'll notice lights 1, 5, and 6 are flashing for GPS data, attitude data, and attitude rate data. Those lights will flash for the first 3 minutes that you turn your battery switch on, and that is because your IMU during that time is homing and getting a good position. And now that the lights have gone solid, we are ready to move on to the next step in the menu. So you'll see there's a flashing light up on the top left side. We are going to bump the dial to port 1 bump. Now the second light is flashing on the port side, and there is a solid light, the very first light, on the starboard indicator side. What that is telling us is that there's one keypad, the base station keypad, installed in this system. That is correct. So we will bump the dial again to port. And now we have 2 solid illuminated lights on the starboard side. That corresponds to each actuator installed at the back of the boat. That's telling us that the system sees 2 actuators. If they were flashing, that would tell us that it is not seeing one or both potentially actuators. In this menu, where the third LED on the port side is flashing and we have 2 solid lights for actuators, we are now going to instance them and assign them their own address on the Lenco 2K network. This will help with identifying them for the next step, where we select which is port and which is starboard. To instance, we are going to long press and hold the dim button, which is the star located underneath the dial in the center of the bottom of the keypad, until all the lights on the indicator face flash. The next step is to bump the dial to port 1 more time so that the 4th light on the port side illuminates. From here, the next step would be to press the dim button, which will trigger 1 actuator to pulse up and down. This is where we identify which actuator is port and starboard. Prior to starting this process, we've gone ahead and made sure that the trim tabs are free from any obstructions, so that way they can move freely without potentially causing any damage. So we will go ahead and press the dim button again to trigger this function.
So now that Ryan's engaged the dim button for the tab pulsing, we can see that this side is actually the port side actuator pulsing, as you can see on the other side, which is the starboard side, which is the one we want to be pulsing, is not. So we're going to press the button on the keypad, the up button on the keypad, and we're going to switch sides to make it go to the starboard side. So now that Ryan has pushed the button, the up button on the keypad, to flip which side the actuator is now commanded to move, you can see that the port actuator has stopped oscillating, and now the starboard actuator, which is the correct side, is now oscillating.
Now that we've finished the initial setup and locating process, we are going to press and hold all 4 of the lower up and down buttons to exit the locating menu. Okay, now that the system has entered the calibration menu, we're going to leave everything at the default stock settings until we can run the boat on the water, commission it, and see how the boat performs and if there's any parameters that we need to adjust. So for the moment, we're going to exit out of this menu. On the Pro Control Auto keypad, it will be a 3-button press that combines the 2 top buttons, Auto Hold, plus the lower dim button, pressing all 3 simultaneously. And now we have entered the Sea Trial calibration menu, where you'll see the top 2 LEDs will flash. At this point, we need to launch the boat to finish the calibration, but if you do not have time to do that, you can still use your system in manual mode, as traditional trim tabs would function. We will exit out of this menu by pressing the Auto and Hold buttons at the top of the Auto keypad simultaneously, or the Fave 1 and Fave 2 buttons at the top of the Pro Control Assist keypad. And now that we have exited out of the Sea Trial calibration menu, you'll see the system is on, status is ready, and the keypad is ready to be used as a manual trim tab controller until we commission on the water. So you can still do all your manual movements of the tabs until such time as you can launch the boat. And now that we've verified that the actuators are functioning and the system is ready, we're going to turn the key switch off at this point before turning the vessel power off through the battery switch to trigger a store in the system's memory of all these settings. Now that the key switch is turned off and the system is in standby mode with the vessel's battery still on, we want to wait at least 90 seconds for everything to save and store in the system before turning the key switch back on again, or before turning the vessel power off. Okay, now that we've waited our 90 seconds for the settings to store, we're going to turn the key switch back on. You'll notice the system will wake, and now that it has acquired signal from both actuators, you can use the system in manual mode. You'll notice that the Auto and Hold buttons are not illuminated, and if you were to go to press the buttons, they will flash at you, meaning that we have not done the sea trial commissioning yet. When you are ready to perform your sea trial commissioning, you will wake the boat in this manner and then press and hold simultaneously the auto and hold buttons to enter the sea trial commissioning menu.